Today I'm going to show you how to make your very own organic fertilizer. This stuff is amazing, and best of all, it's absolutely free. You're going to need a bucket. Now, something this sort of size is perfectly fine, but I am going to be using a bit of a bigger bucket. You can use pretty much any size you like, whatever you have lying around. I would suggest something that has a lid. It's just going to make this whole process a lot easier. The other thing you're going to need is rainwater. I collect a lot of rainwater. I like to use it for my plants, but it's absolutely essential for this part of the process. Now, that's for a couple of reasons. Number one is there are a lot of little microbes in here. Number two, there's no chlorine. So if you are using tap water, I would let it sit for a little while and let the chlorine off gas. But yeah, preferably try and collect some rainwater. Even if you're collecting in a bucket, it doesn't have to collect off a roof. Try and use some rainwater. And lastly, what you're going to need are these things, weeds. So that's probably the best part of the whole process, is the fact that you're using something normally you'd throw away and trying to get rid of in the garden, but when you can actually find a good use for it, it makes it all the better. And it doesn't have to be weeds. Weeds are just a handy thing to use. You can use grass clippings if you want. That'll work well. And I'm going to show you a couple things to actually optimize this fertilizer to make it so much more useful. This here is comfrey. Now, comfrey is incredible. If you want amazing fertilizer for your chilies, or even just great compost, you want to grow as much of this stuff as you possibly can. The reason this stuff is so incredible is because it has a very high value in potassium. Plants like chilies and tomatoes really love a lot of potassium towards the back end of the season, especially when they are fruiting. So if you can add something to this mix to make your fertilizer higher in potassium, then you're doing a fantastic job, and you're going to get a much better harvest towards the end of the season and much healthier and tastier fruit. Now, if you're just going to be using standard grass clippings and weeds and things like that in the mix I'm about to show you, that's perfectly fine as well. You'll get quite a balanced NPK. It'll be pretty much on a level in terms of percentage wise across the NPK. But yeah, if you really want to boost things, if you want to boost your harvest, make them taste better, add more potassium by using things like comfrey. Now, a lot of people think of clover as weed. That's fine if you want to think of it that way, but clover is an amazing plant. Not only can it fix nitrogen in the soil and actually invigorate your grass, it also remains green, even when there's a bit of a drought, which at the moment we have a bit of a drought. You can see a lot of the grass that we have around us is not very green, but the clover, it's always perfectly green. I love this stuff. It's also amazing for a nitrogen boost inside the fertilizer we're about to make. While this next part is not essential, it does speed the process up. So you could use a pair of these if you have some shears to chop this all up. But I find it a lot easier just to use this, which is an edging tool. So whichever you have available, all you want to do is break up the weeds. That's a good amount of water. If you really want to boost it up, if you have got worm bins, then this is leachate. This is basically the worm tea, some people call it, but it's actually not. It's just the drippings that come out the bottom of your worm bins. Add some of that, and that's just going to make sure this process really takes off. And then give it another bit of a mix. Careful not to splash it on yourself, because it doesn't smell the greatest. Now, I would recommend this as well. You want to keep the stuff below the surface, a rock, some bricks, anything like that. Now, you don't want to seal this, so I'm going to leave this loose on here. That allows the CO2 that builds up, and methane and all the other stuff that's going to build up, all the gases, you allow that to be released. If you do seal it up, then you might end up with a big old mess when you do actually unseal it. Now we just need to have a little bit of patience. We're going to leave it outside in this glorious sunshine. The warmer it is, the quicker this process will work. So we'll come and check on it in about a week's time and see where we are. It's been about a week now, and it's time for us to check in on our fertilizer, see how we did. I've got to warn you, this stuff stinks, so just be prepared for that. Let's have a look in here. Oh, you can see little bubbles coming up there. That really pongs. If you have a look in there, if I give that a bit of a squeeze, you can see those bubbles coming through quite a lot. So we've still got these bricks in the way. Now, I mean, the bricks, I like to put them in because it keeps things submerged, but honestly, we're not making hot sauce here. So I'm not too fussed about the fermentation being exact. So, you know, whether you want to use the bricks or not, it's really up to you. It just does speed things up a little bit. But it's a bit of a pain when you're in and out of the bucket all the time. And yeah, you can see I'm wearing, well, not a glove, I'm wearing a doggy poo bag. But don't touch this stuff. And if you do, just wash your hands straight afterwards. Lots of bubbles. And those bubbles, that's CO2. Basically, this is fermenting, and that's doing a lot of the goodness here. Not only are we getting some great fertilizer, but we're also getting some awesome microbes that are going to be beneficial for this. But that is looking good. Let me show you what we do next. Yeah, this stuff is very, very concentrated, so don't go and add it directly to your plants. I'm just stirring it up a bit here because a lot of the goodness is going to be down the bottom. It does kind of separate a little bit. Okay, that stuff is very, very concentrated. So what we're going to do, I've got a 10-litre jug over here. We're going to pour this in. We're basically going to do a 10-to-1 mix. This jug is about a litre. So I don't use this stuff inside my greenhouses for the main reason is because I use drippers, and this will clog up the drippers. But for out here, for my tomatoes and other vegetables, it works an absolute treat. And you don't want to feed them every single time you water. This is something you do maybe once a week during the peak growing part of the season, and once every other week during the early parts. So kind of about now, I'll probably feed this once every 2 weeks or so. And then later in the season, once we have some real growth going on and we've got a lot of tomatoes coming through, then once a week, or maybe even twice a week. So every other watering. With the spent weeds and grass clippings that are inside your bucket that you've been fermenting and making this lovely fertilizer, you can remove it all if you want. I wouldn't recommend that. I'd leave at least half of it in there and then just keep adding fresh stuff to it, fresh weeds, fresh grass clippings, mash it down like we did in the beginning, and it'll just keep this fresh cycle of fertilizer going. In fact, if you leave that stuff inside the bucket, it's going to help kickstart that process a lot quicker. So it'll be quicker than the first time you did it, because all the great bacteria that's causing the fermentation to happen is still inside there. So yeah, you can just keep it going. I would take out some of the residue because it will get a bit full over time. And with that used stuff, dump it in your compost pile. It's perfectly fine, because all the seeds that may have been in there, the weed seeds, they are no longer viable because of that whole fermentation process. So fantastic use of a lot of the stuff that typically we'd be throwing away at this time of year. I hope that you give this a go and make yourself some amazing free fertilizer, and look forward to seeing you on the next video. Until then, stay spicy.